individuals are guided towards a full development of their potential through collective reasoning. We have Bingi Riaga, aka Teacher Ma'at, and Okavango, the rebel guru.
Good, thanks.
I'm yours truly, Rada, and we are the Perfect Balance Trad Class. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Be a part of this discussion. Be a part of this journey. You know? So, how are we feeling today, brothers?
Yeah, man.
Great, man.
Give thanks, you know?
Yeah,
Give thanks for life.
no idea what
Yeah,
that
man. The chat class, chat out.
On. Instead, chat class, chat on, huh?
Shut on. Shut on.
This week is a very significant week. I want to mention as well that when we decided to venture on this journey, we had 2 dates that we had said we were going to use as our launch dates. We had June the 19th, and we had July 23rd as the in the event that we weren't able to make June 19th, we would launch on or around July 23rd. We had thought that we wouldn't be able to make June 19th, but we ended up pushing through and doing it. So we ended up making June 19th as our launch date, our premiere date. And today, being the weekend leading up to July 23rd, we want to say that, you know, it's good that we did push through to launch on June 19th, which was actioning something that we had planned. So we took something from a plan and we manifested it into an action. And I give thanks for that. But I still want to make special note today of this day being our and why we had chosen this day. Because the reason we had chosen the 19th of June was because of its historical context in terms of Juneteenth. And the reason why we had chosen July 23rd was because of its significance to the Rastafari movement in terms of it being the birth of His Imperial Majesty, Kadamawe Haile Selassie. So this week, this week we want to have a discussion on the man, the myth, the legend, you know? So I'll just quickly give like a little historical background to His Majesty. Born July 23rd, 1892, around the turn of a century. His birth name was Tafari Makonnen. His father was Makonnen Waldi Mikhail. His mother was Wazira Yashimamet Ali. In 1916, which was at the age of what, 24 or thereabouts?
Yeah, man. 24 is correct.
Yeah, he ascended to the title of Ras, which in Ethiopia, a Ras is like I want to say king, but I don't want to use the word king. But it's a ruler for a province.
It's royalty.
It's a part of royalty. But now he assumed a title now.
A title, right.
He assumed a title now at the age of 24 of Ras. And this now is where the movement Rastafari gets coined its name from, Rastafari. So from the man Rastafari Makonnen. In 1911, prior to him gaining his title of Ras, he got married August 3rd, 1911, to Empress Menen, who was the niece of Ligia Su, who was another royal member of the Ethiopian lineage. And in 1930, His Imperial Majesty, November 2nd, 1930, he was coronated as the Emperor of Ethiopia. So that's just a little synopsis of His Imperial Majesty. So what we want to talk about His Majesty today is we want to talk about, like, first thing I want us to talk about are some of his accomplishments. So let's take the discussion from there. what are some of the accomplishments of His Imperial Majesty that makes him the man, the myth, the legend? Bill.
Yes, yeah. So for His Majesty, I don't know if we could have time to really discuss His Majesty, right? We won't. We could just go on and on and on about the king. So
Well, it was Haile Selassie problem last week, you know.
yeah. Well, it's true. It's true. It's true. We could go on and on, right? So we look at His Majesty and how he rises to be Emperor of Ethiopia, right? But we also look at him in the context of Rastafarianism, right? So we looking at a man who's ruling a country, Ethiopia, in East Africa, and the Horn of Africa, but we are looking at him as also coming from a dynasty, the Solomonic dynasty, to be exact, right? But we're looking at men in Jamaica now. We're looking at the Leonard Howell. We're looking at the Marcus Garveys. We're looking at these men, Hibbert. We're looking at them preaching the coming of a Messiah, right? Who His Majesty is going to represent to us, to Rastafarians, soon after that whole prediction. But His Majesty himself, his rise to power in itself is amazing, right? We look at how he comes to the throne, all the titles he obtains as a youth coming up in the palace then, right? We could give a lot of context but it's context that is we're gonna have to expound upon, right? So like Ra said, he came into power, right? How he came into power. So we know we could go on from like November 1905 at the age of 13 to Farai was appointed Desmajat, this jazz match of Dora Mulata, right? So even at 13 years old, he has this great responsibility on his shoulder.
Leadership
Right?
role, because
This
as youth, in them inside, you're growing as a youth.
yes,
Take your role as a leader and securing the family.
but he's unique too in that sense, because we could probably look through the history and see that he obtained that title at such a young age. It was unprecedented in Ethiopian history for a youth at 13 to take a role where he's now the leader of a whole province, right?
So one of his accomplishments is that at a young and tender age, he attained tremendous leadership responsibilities.
Yes, I.
Yep.
Yes, I.
One of the other things that I want to talk about as well is because we could go on and on in terms of the history of His Majesty, right?
Yeah.
So, but because we want to really bring to the forefront the significance of His Majesty, because we're going to have other chart classes where we speak about His Majesty in terms of his history and his occurrence. But today we want to focus pretty much on the accomplishments of His Majesty. So one of his accomplishments was that at a young age, he attained tremendous
He's
leadership.
a great leader.
Right.
Yes.
So at a young age, at a very young age.
Yeah.
Okabongo, you want to highlight any of the accomplishments of His Majesty that you want to talk about?
Yeah, one of the accomplishments that I like is his effort to free Africa and unite Africa. Right. So even after he had overcome the Italians, he didn't just stop there and say, okay, Ethiopia is free, we're good. He also was put another effort into freeing other African countries from colonial rule. I mean from the oppression. So he sent everything that he could. He sent arms. You know what I mean? He speak out against them. Speak out against the imperialists, and he created the African Union.
Organization of African Unity.
Right. right? And he created those things, and we see those. It's up to now. It's not where it's supposed to be, but
Those were the foundations.
it was the foundation of African unity, and that is a big thing for I. You know,
And not only in Africa, but even within the diaspora as well.
yeah, that right.
Even within the diaspora.
So, and that was the groundwork for you, I and I, to even in this time still trying to have that African unity, to spread that African unity. So you know what I mean, we still continuing the work of His Majesty.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Switch African unity. Yeah.
What about the Ayaga?
Reflecting on that period of history in our time, and looking at colonialism at its peak or towards the end of its peak in them times. What His Majesty has done as a unifying force is unbelievable. Now, before His Majesty, we were basically nothing as a people.
To the rest of the world.
Not until he tried. Not until he tried. Then we start having some respect where people start inviting him to their place because of the good spokesman he is. And those are later days from his childhood days. And he traveled the world, bringing his ideas, bringing his learning the technology, whatever he needs to learn, and send his people to go outside and gain innovation to develop the country and secure the country. So for me, that was a remarkable thing for us as a people, because in those times it was terrible time.
True. I think the point that Yaga is making is that for African people who had gone through this traumatic psychological terror, right? They had lost any semblance of worth, value. They didn't think anything valuable was in our nation. And with the Haile Selassie coming to the forefront, we came to a realization, hold on a minute. You mean that as African people, we have royalty as well? We have people who are affluent. We have people who are rulers of large
Policy makers.
Yes. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with that. And I think that that's a very significant thing about Haile Selassie too.
Yeah.
But I want to add this too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, from His Majesty being a youth, and I'm talking about strictly Ethiopian and what His Majesty accomplished in Ethiopia in itself within that 45-year reign. In 20 years' time, think about what His Majesty being the Emperor had done in Ethiopia. From him initiating railroads, educational systems, building construction, getting rid of feudalism, creating a united Ethiopia, where have this feudalistic state. The man's accomplishment within Ethiopia was not only what most countries do, but in the time period in which he had it done. No other leader in history has been able to accomplish such development. We are ahead of the time space.
And another thing too, where I see a lot of people, when they try to disrespect him or you know what I mean, try to show shit at him, they'll bring up the fact that slaves were in Ethiopia in his time.
Yes.
But one of his accomplishments is he was the one that end slavery in Ethiopia, put the framework to end slavery in Ethiopia, which he faced a big backlash in Ethiopia, but he still pushed through to end slavery in Ethiopia. So that's that big accomplishment.
Accomplishment as well. True. Yes. Another accomplishment that I want to talk about, and it links even in our discussion in the previous track class, is that he reunited Ethiopia and Eritrea. You know what I'm saying? Like, he accomplished that. And even though they still separated again, but I'm saying that you can see in all his actions, like the core of his being was that we want to see a unified Africa. And that I think is remarkable.
Well, being the front runner in the formulation of the OAU, it showed His Majesty's intentions, right? And not only that, it also showed his intentions when the Ethiopian World Federation was formulated, the EWF formulated in America, in Harlem, in the 1930s, right? Think about how important this is, that His Majesty was working for the globalization of Africans coming together, right? But not only that, the powers he even implemented on the EWF is very unique as an organization when we look at world organizations and the exemptions. So His Majesty laid down such a framework for our progress. If we take into consideration the man works and speeches, that's all we need as a people. We don't need religious identity. We don't need lineage. We don't need any of that. We just look at his works. That's it. We look at what he has done, what he has laid out, the foundation, his speeches. And if we were to follow that, we would develop along the lines in which he envisioned. They didn't call him the father of Africa for nothing. They call him the father of Africa because the rest of Africa were his children. He was the adult. That's why he was the father. He was the one who initiated togetherness, bringing everybody together. That's why he's a father. He was the adult. His understanding was.
Mind you, Bingy, it was one Africa before then, So since the destruction, we have to make it clear that that's when he brought back Africa together and tried to unite Africa and met some obstacle in his effort, to try and do that.
And another thing, he also, to maintain Ethiopia's status as an uncolonized country, is not a normal feat in that time, because I'm trying to think of a country that wasn't a Western country, that wasn't colonized. Almost every country on the face of the earth in that time was colonized.
Even Western countries.
Even
Western countries.
Even the Western countries also.
The Western country, because it was most Western countries during the colonization.
You know what I'm saying?
It's not just still trying to get referendum. The Irish is still fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Welsh.
Even Welsh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm saying most of the countries that weren't colonized were Western countries.
Right.
So I'm saying that a country that wasn't
a Western country,
that wasn't colonized. That wasn't colonized. Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, man.
So, as you made mention of that, right? This is I think that this spearheading this effort to keep Ethiopia uncolonized is one of the shining stars in the accomplishments of His Majesty. So let's talk about the Ethiopian War for a few minutes as well. Like Bingy, I'll let you take it because I know you want to get into the historical facts of it as well. So
So think about the Italo-Ethiopian War. Very, very interesting, right? So you have this so-called greatest leader of the world, Mussolini, right? Deciding that now they want a part of Africa. But what they want the Horn of Africa. But not only the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, where the gods love to be. That's where they want, bro. This place untouched, right? But it just so happens, man, that our strength under the leadership, and Ethiopia's strength under the leadership of His Majesty didn't make that possible. Even though there was a period in that war where His Majesty had to leave Ethiopia, because he had to leave Ethiopia, so he could get the support that he needed in order to fight this war against this fascist regime, Ethiopia was successful. But not only was Ethiopia successful in the Italo-Ethiopian War, they were successful on all different levels. You had a people who were ill-equipped to fight a war, period. But what they had was will and might. And that will and might allowed them to overcome.
Guerrilla warfare, they know guerrilla warfare.
Yes. So that allowed them to overcome and win a war against this great, so-called great general, right?
Superpower.
But not only that, we look at His Majesty's humanity. Even after and during the war, His Majesty allowed those people who wanted to stay that just opposed the so-called enemy. He gave them the option whether they wanted to stay in Ethiopia or go.
I just love Rastafari deal with, man.
Yeah. So even when you look at His Majesty, right, overcoming all these obstacles, in all of it, he's still considering humanity. He's not only considering the African first, he's considering humanity. He gives you the option. That war, we know, is a war for territory and access, right? We know Eritrea was originally part of Ethiopia. Eritrea being the seaport or the seaport area or the easy access to the oceans. The coastal area was part of Ethiopia, right? So that war in itself was really to get
So I reckon the Brits had Eritrea.
Yeah. So
But they have access to the sea.
access to the sea. Yeah, and leave Ethiopia now kind of landlocked, right? But that war was unsuccessful, right? And it was unsuccessful because they had His Majesty as their leader. That's why it was unsuccessful. You had a leader who was diligent.
He was courageous. He was a visionary.
Yes, and a visionary. Absolutely.
This war, right? Every time I have a reason about this aspect of Ethiopian history, it brings the word to the forefront of mystic, right? And it just shows you the mystical nature of Rastafari as a person, right? And I'll bring my view of it like this, right? Italy was the leader of the Christian world, the European world, because within Italy you find
the Vatican.
the Vatican, right, which is the papal city, right? So they wanted to say they control that, and they wanted to know validate their religious authority by conquering and controlling the cradle of civilization, which, as we know, is Ethiopia.
And
right?
that's it.
Right. So now you come into Ethiopia, you try to overtake Ethiopia, right? His Majesty goes and says, all right, listen, first of all, he told the Ethiopian, because remember as well that this war wasn't the first time this war was being fought. This war had already been fought in Adwa.
Before.
Right? This war had already been fought in Adwa. So now His Majesty said, listen, we have already won this war. We have already won this war, so we don't need to fight this war. So let us deal with it from a diplomatic point of view. Because of the nature of Ethiopian people and their love of their freedom, they said, no, we're fighting. If a war, right?
If a war, then war, then a war.
So the people said, listen, we're fighting. So His Majesty went, as any leader would do, and support the struggle, fought in the war. And when it started showing that it wasn't a war, a physical war, but a war of public opinion. So what His Majesty did now, he took himself outside of the space, and he went to the League of Nations, and he brought the issue. So he started to bring awareness to the world of, listen, this is what's going on here, right? Because remember, in these times we didn't have social media, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have any of these things that would bring the information to the people. So His Majesty brought this awareness to the global community to say, listen, this is what's going on. They laughed at him. You understand? They laughed at him. Even after he had established the policies of collective security within this charter, they looked at it like, okay, well, you guys have to do it yourself. So now when they realized, they said, all right, well, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna stay out of it. So we're not gonna back either side. We're not gonna back the Italians, we're not gonna back the Ethiopians. So we're gonna stay out of it. But what that did was that they basically, it was like a death sentence for the Ethiopians, because in their minds they thought, well, once we're staying out of it, it's a given that the Italians are gonna win this.
It's a green light. It's a green light to the Italian. It's never there.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Now, coming up now, we look now and we see His Majesty making the speech, which Bob Marley immortalized in his song War, where he says, until the philosophy that whole one is superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, right? But in that speech, he says something, and it's a very significant thing. He says, this fire that you have lit in Ethiopia
Will burn.
is gonna burn in your backyard,
Yeah.
right? And what we see now is that, because remember, you know, that when a war is fought on your country or in your country, on your land, on your grounds, it's a very devastating thing. It's a
Yeah, man.
economically
Destruction of property, lots of lives.
Yeah, even when you win the war, you still lose.
Yes, right?
Yeah, man.
So what happened was, we see now a relocation of this war, this struggle, from Ethiopia into Europe, i.e. World War.
Where it manifests itself into World War II.
Right. So what happened was, Italy partnered now with Germany, and they started attacking. And what they did was that they attacked England, right? They attacked England. And at this point, England now said, all right, if His Majesty come, stay here. They took His Majesty in. His Majesty was staying in England. And what England did, now mind you, let's look historically again. Italy is the mother of England, because English people England was established by people from Rome leaving and going to England to establish England. That's how England was established. So Italy is the mother of England. Now, England went and took military action to stop the Italians from their attempted takeover of Ethiopia, right? Now, this is the mystical part of it now. To find out that they, a colonial power, fought another colonial power, ousted the Italians out of Ethiopia. But they didn't take over Ethiopia as a colonial power. They put the control of Ethiopia back in the hands of His Majesty. And that I have never seen done. That I have never seen done.
There are reasons.
Because of the sovereignty of His Majesty.
There are reasons for that.
Yeah, the sovereignty of His Majesty made that possible. Even
Because I recognize him as a true king.
yes, of course. An ancient king, an ancient king from an ancient lineage.
I also have a theory. That because of the great leader he was able to lead and organize his people, to move the people, to command the people in such a way that when the British had problem in Eritrea, he needed that galvanization of the people, because at the end of the day, they are one people. They were only just divided because country chose to divide them. So the threat coming from Italy was going to be a threat to Eritrea also. So in an effort to counterbalance that threat, I think that's where the British came in and said they would work alongside them. But I'll tell you something. We spoke about His Majesty as the true and living king that they are recognized and know. I've had the privilege of stepping up in the St. George Church in Windsor Castle. And you know, this is where the king is buried. And around about the same time, that king existed, His Majesty was coronated. When that king passed away, His Majesty was coronated. And there are people who believe it's no coincidence that someone had to fall on their sword. Because two kings cannot reign. Two kings cannot reign at the same time, so someone fell down on their sword. Respectfully. But His Majesty was a Knight Templar because in that same church that King George is buried, His Majesty has his Knight Templar breastplate is placed in there because all of the Templar that pass and trod on, they have their space in there, they have their chair, they have their space in there. And no, the guy that was guarding the place at the time, one of the security guard at the place at the time was his grandfather, was His Majesty's security. And we were just talking about knights and stuff like that. And that came up in the conversation, and he was telling me that his father was guarding His Majesty in Bath. His grandfather at the property in Bath at the time when he was exiled.
I just want to go back to the war. The Italians, the only reason why they were getting ahead in the war, they were going against the rules that the League of Nations has set for war.
Collective security, yeah.
Yeah. So they were using
Chemical.
that weren't
Chemical warfare.
so chemical warfare they were using. So if it was the legal way of war, they would not get no headway in Ethiopia. And
I say this
they have to,
based on that, and I want to be clear. There are no rules when it comes to war. War in itself is an illegal thing, should be an illegal thing. War, right? It can't have rules to war when what you doing is against humanity.
Yeah.
Period. It can't be rules.
Oh, you have to be one.
Yeah, that is nonsense.
That's a nonsense. You know, your boss has said a divine intervention. A divine intervention when still there.
And you got bomb and killing millions of innocent people. War in itself is a crime. That's a war crime. War is the crime.
I don't have right.
no,
That the what young people in it.
yeah, yes. As far as we could remember, civilization as
always had
recorded, there always been war.
It's of engagement.
There always been war. So
Always.
the rules, but the war is always against like the head of state. The head of state decided, okay, they're gonna war. So the rules is to protect civilians.
But that don't happen.
We
Not
know,
in this time.
we know.
or in the time
Not in this time. For instance, look how far we have gone. We look at native men though. Let's look at Africans, for example, native Africans, and how they fought wars centuries ago. Men from one opposing faction met men from the other opposing in battlegrounds. Like literally.
You take it to the battlefield. Yeah, no, they take it to the battle forward from the utility from the
No, it has no civilian involved in that then. So
no collateral damage.
Right, no collateral damage. We have moved away from that. So it are no war crime. When man say war crime, no, war is the crime. It are no war crime.
Yeah.
War is the crime.
War is the crime.
Crime.
Mm-hmm.
Nonsense.
I nowadays it's like the two sides committing war crime and say they didn't.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
That's the rule.
Yeah. So
and then I hate them because they can't contact me all the while and I war and I say, yo, God have to protect us and I'm gonna go make a deal with them case, you know.
yeah, that's right. And next thing that I want to talk about with His Majesty too is his stance on gender equality. We see the battle of the sexes being a major thing in our experience today, and it's been for a while, right? And in 1930, when His Majesty was coronated, he did another unprecedented act. Culturally, whenever the emperor was coronated for Ethiopia, he was coronated in this big grand ceremony. But the Empress received her coronation in a private ceremony after the major ceremony, right? What His Majesty did as a stand to show that, listen, we are at a point in history now where we have to address equality of the sexes. And what he did to showcase that was that he had himself and his Empress Menen coronated in the same ceremony. And I think that I applaud that. And it shows how much of a visionary he was and how forward thinking he was, you know?
He leads from the front.
Yes, man. Irrespective of the opposition which he's gonna face or faces, you know? So as we think about July 23rd, which is the birthday or the commemorative birthday of His Majesty, you know, we looked at his history, his biography, we've looked at his accomplishments, you know. So the next aspect of what we want to look up with His Majesty is how does the works of His Majesty help us today? What's the significance today of the works of His Majesty? Why do we need to even consider Emperor Selassie in 2024?
Go again.
We're saying that we're looking at the significance of His Majesty to us today. Why do we need to even be considering His Majesty in 2024?
Yeah, so one reason we have to consider His Majesty in 2024, we have to go forward to the history, because in the Western Hemisphere, His Majesty was such a beacon of hope for people in captivity, or people that was taken into captivity. We had everything we saw around us was saying that we are nothing. Everything we see around us was saying that we are less than. Everything we see around us, you know what I mean, was degrading of us. And when we look to the east, we saw a great king, and that was a big motivator to black people in the West to say, okay, we are kings, you know what I mean? This is what we can be. We are not what they say we are. We are, you know what I mean? What they say again? Or something like that. Or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So and it go to this time, you know what I mean, for us as black people to keep breaking the chains that is on our mind. You know what I mean? We keep trying to break that chain. You know what I mean? Even us as is try reaching out to people to help them to break the chain, because I show them what they can become in Haile Selassie. They can become kings and queens, and what they are. Kings and queens, and that's the significance.
To realize their full potential.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Bingy.
So the question is, why should we look at His Majesty in this time, right? Because His Majesty left us a framework that has been proven. So if we really want to progress as a people, right, we look at frameworks that are proven. So if we look at how His Majesty developed Ethiopia, how he developed Ethiopia in the time that he ruled, that's a framework we could look at for development in other African countries. It's a framework that we could look at outside of Africa as well, because it's a proven science at that point, right? But for us, for I, we have a deeper link, right? We have a deeper link to His Majesty for I, that those who see His Majesty in the light that we see Him as Rastafari, right? He is our head, like literally because of what He has done, but we should always look to His Majesty works. I think that in any time whether it's education His Majesty is speaking about, or it's a mandate for I to centralize and organize, or him being the head of the Orthodox Church, right? We look at him in all these lights. He's covering the framework of humanity. That one individual is king, he's emperor, he's leader of the church. He is that divine personality. So that in itself is such a great achievement, but it's achieved by a man. So we know that our achievements could be the same. So I think it is relevant not only then, it's relevant now, it's going to be relevant in the future. The foundation is laid. And I think he has laid such a great foundation on how to progress. We should use it in every dispensation without bias.
Yaga.
Life is simple, and His Majesty saw life in its simplest form. Naturally, man, as human beings, we need certain basic things to satisfy our needs. And His Majesty look at those things and we try to live our life in that simple way. So our food must be organic, must be natural, coming from the earth. You don't eat certain things because it damages the body. It inhibits the body from acquiring certain nutrients and affect your metabolism. All right? You talk to people with professionalism. You talk to people with common courtesy, with manners, with respect. You treat each other with manners and respect, and develop in terms of innovation and technology. So those are the basic things His Majesty try to focus on, along with gaining education from other parts so that he can complement what is present within his society. And even today, these basic things are still relevant. As a matter of fact, it is the reason or some of the causes why we're having such bad health these days. Some people don't have any memory. We have so much behavioral issues with the kids because of these poor choices and these poor decisions that people want to focus on profit margin and making money rather than focusing on life and health in itself. So these principles and these teachings are still relevant and to this day, because you can't go around nature and you can't go around what our DNA was designed for.
Yes, sir. The significance of His Majesty to I this time, right, is that the struggle continues. So a lot of the issues that His Majesty was opposed to in his time, as a people, we are still facing those struggles today, right? We still have inequality. We still have racial differences. We still have educational inequalities. We still have geographical inequalities. We have so many inequalities to this day in 2024. And I believe sometimes even more and more harder to be discerned, because now the people who are promoting these things, they have become versed in doing these things, that they now do it at a level that if you're not aware, if you're not conscious, then you won't even see that this is what is being done. So because those things still exist, and because, as Bingi said, that His Majesty had established a framework to address these things, because I believe the point Bingi was making is that every aspect of our lives, His Majesty has identified a proven way forward. If it's in education, if it's in health, if it's in business, if it's in transportation, whatever.
Communication, you name it. It's a natural way. Those are the natural things that are needed to satisfy your basic needs.
Right. And His Majesty has provided proven, which is the key word, ways of dealing and addressing with these issues. Now, because we still have these issues, it shows us that because we have opted to not use the framework which His Majesty has set for us as a people to say, this is the way forward. We have chosen everything else. We've chosen to do everything else. And we failed in everything else. So the real significance of His Majesty to us is that, listen, this is something that has been proven. So let's use that and let this work.
To enhance life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you know, I think that coming up on July 23rd, it's another year. We're here, and it's always a very emotional time for me, you know, because to look at when you take up the tradition of Rastafari, right? And you look at the struggles you go through when you take up the tradition of Rastafari. It's remarkable, from the young girl in Jamaica with the school, Okavango with his experiences, myself going through ridicule and ostracism from family. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's always good whenever I come to this time of year, because it gives us the opportunity now to come together, and it gives you that support. So whenever the bingy call up, it's a joy for the other bingy for all the heights and say, yo, you know, yeah,
Yeah, man.
another year at them. I see it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But it's a given,
Another thing,
you know, Ras. It's a given that when you walk this or trod this life, that is a given, right? Because you're in opposition to everything that is not right. So because
Yes, sir.
you're in opposition to everything that is not right, and when they see you, they see it outwardly. It's an outward opposition. It's not hidden, right? Because
It's an outward manifestation that they are.
so it's a given that once you take this stride, you're gonna have these obstacles. But again, man, know thyself is the greatest commandment to all human beings. So when one know themselves, then that burden is light. That burden becomes light.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because we mightier than that. We energy stronger than their energy. They're
Yes,
weak.
sir. Yes.
Yeah, they're weak. We who in opposition is strong. Because
Yes, sir.
we not in the majority, you know. We in the minority, and yet we are opposing.
Mm-hmm. Or even
One man against
the earth, you know.
Yeah, one man against 1,000. Yes, yes.
Has been accomplished by the minority, you know, not the majority.
Yes, so
The earth is not all, has been accomplished through the minority.
yeah, so we give thanks to when you embrace it.
Yeah, as we go through this strong, and we eagerly await the 23rd, you know. Give thanks to the opportunity and the moment, man, and just give thanks for life inside.
Yeah, man.
So I believe we're gonna wrap it up now.
Before you wrap it up, for ones and ones who listening to this conversation, be it known that we have not even touched on Rastafari or Rastafarians association with His Majesty, because we are focusing on His Majesty. So that will come after. Because then that is the implication here when someone sees this video, that automatically we're going to be talking about Rastafarians and His Majesty.
Talking about Rastafari.
We talk about Rastafari. Man, the first legend.
Another thing is, you don't have to be a Rastafari to learn about the works of His Majesty. So every black person need to learn about the works of His Majesty. You have because
Of all the ancients.
because ones will see Rastafari say Haile Selassie, I say Rastafari, and they kind of try to stay away from it because they say, boy, they're not with that. But to learn of Rastafari, the man, you don't have to see him as, you know what I mean, spiritually, but you know what I mean, to learn of his works is
Yeah, but the same way.
The significance.
Same way I want can learn about Virgin Atlantic, Richard Branson. Same way them can learn about them can learn about Elon Musk
Yeah, man.
because of the great works they have done. But they put a stigma on his majesty because them say Rastafari.
Oh,
And what
Rastafari.
Rastafari represents. So people
And
understand
because,
this
and because of
issue.
the colonial, you know what I mean? Because
Right.
Rastafari, what Chad Rastafari, you know what I mean?
Resist.
Thinking the colonial
Resist.
thinking, right?
There's resistance, sire. There's
To
resistance.
stay in line with the colonial look and everything, they're like, okay, I don't want to be a Rastafari. You know what I mean? I don't want to have nothing to do with Rastafari. So they don't get to learn about His Majesty.
Because
And
they don't want to dress modestly and they don't want to dress militantly and they don't want to look they don't want to look a certain way so that they can be brandished
But when
and people put them under
when we-
pressure. Some people just can't deal with that pressure
yeah, man.
and they find it easier to do the other way.
That's why when you trod this strud, you already accept the pressures. It becomes light burden because you already know yourself.
Yes,
So
sir.
because you know yourself, them things, we overcome them things. Them things become child play because this I trod. We embrace it. We have to because we oppose it naturally. We
Naturally.
oppose it. Yeah, so it's easy, that easy trod.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
It's identity, you know. What they take away from most of I is identity.
Yes,
So
sir.
when you take away identity, you don't know who you are. So
Naturally.
you have no confidence in nothing. You
Yes.
stay, you know the term they use in the West all the time, and we use it too unconsciously, but words is programming. It's called belief. Belief means I don't know, but we use it as it is authoritative.
As if I know.
Do know. So when a man tells you he believes something, it's like that means something. That don't mean nothing.
You
Yeah.
don't
It don't
know.
mean nothing.
You don't know.
Right? So we know. We know because we trod the trod. So
Naturally.
we know.
Yes, sir. So we give
Yeah,
thanks,
man.
Mr. Balance. We give thanks for the one like Okavongo said that I want to highlight the fact that for you to know about something, you don't have to be on the same page as that thing as well, because like a lot of black people accept and love Malcolm X. Malcolm X was a Muslim,
Right.
right? But because you follow Malcolm X or like Malcolm X, it doesn't mean that you are going to convert to Islam. You understand what I'm saying? So, it's just being aware of the ancients and the works they have done and struggles they have gone through for the liberties that we enjoy in this time. And make sure that we know, being aware of these things, we can keep that struggle going on, keep hold of these liberties, that the next generations can enjoy these liberties and more, because that is the intention, that as we grow and as we progress and as we move forward, we're supposed to be moving closer to our original identity. And that is the purpose that we still face today.
What? Okavongo, you might look like you know, a people star.
He want to play ball, but the argument's with him, so we don't know. But I play this side, go with that, man. I know
Yes,
that's
man.
Do remember to like, share, and subscribe, comment, and I look forward to our next trad class and the trad class in which we actually discuss now the role of Rastafari and the Rastafari movement. So give thanks to the ones, give thanks for the moment, and give thanks for the celebration.
Yeah, man. Bless.
Perfect, man.
Thanks for life.
Yeah, man. Balancing things.